is your instructor, Tori Quizmondo. This video will take you through Project 3. Let's take a look. Task number 1. In cell F12, create a formula that displays average of balance if the type is supplies. So in your test, you're going to have some sort of average if or sum if. You'll have one of those questions because you're going to have to complete a formula or a function that's got multiple layers to it, so that some of the ones that they lean toward in your test are going to be average if or sum if. So let's go ahead and take a look at this. We're going to place a formula in cell F12, so we'll click into cell F12. And the easiest way to do this, you can always pull your formulas or your functions from your formulas tab. You could also pull them from your insert function box. But I'm going to tell you, in my experience, the easiest way for us to try to complete this task is to click into our cell where we would like our answer to be. So we want our answer to go into cell F12. Type equals, and we want an average. And when you start to type it in, average if, it's going to come up on your screen, and you can select it by double-clicking. Double-click that. Now, if you were really, really good with Excel and you knew exactly where every comma, every bracket, and every parenthesis should be, as well as every space, you could go ahead and just type it in here. However, most of us are not that skilled yet. So what we're going to do is, after you get your average if statement identified, come up here to your function box, and it will give you your function arguments. And in your function arguments, you get to choose what goes into each of these areas, and it gives you helpers like here. Range. The range is the range of cells that you want evaluated. So in order for us to evaluate this, let's just take another look at our question. We want to know the average of the balance if the type is supplies. So the type would be our range of cells that's going to be identified for evaluation. So I'm going to select just the very first cell and do a Control-Shift-Down arrow, which will select all of the cells. You certainly could have typed it in if you wanted to do that. Either way would have worked. Now, it's going to ask us for our criteria. The criteria that we want from this one specifically is supplies, and it's got to be spelled exact. So if it has a capital S in there, make sure you place a capital S in there. So what we've done so far is selected the column that we want evaluated, selected the specific item that we want pulled from that evaluation, and now we're going to line it up with the numbers that are going to come from the balance. So let's go over here and select balance, the first cell in balance, which is G15, Control, Shift, and Down arrow. This is going to be our formula right here. The range of cells is D15 through D59. The criteria we're pulling from those cells is going to be supplies. So if that range finds supplies, we want to average the cell that goes along with it. So I'm going to go ahead and select OK. And now I've got my formula in there. All right, let's take a look at the second task. In cell G12, create a formula that displays the highest balance due. Anytime it's going to ask you for the highest of anything, it's going to be max, a max function. So I'm going to go ahead and say equals max. It's going to pull up my max function. I'll double click that. It'll place my max in there, and then I'm going to go up to my function, and I'm going to click on my function arguments box just to make it easy enough for myself so that I can follow through with the little helpers that are on there. So now it's going to tell me that I need to place my numbers in there, the numbers of the empty cell values that I want to find the maximum of. And in this particular task, it's going to say find the highest balance due. So I want my balance column. So I'll select the very first cell, Control-Shift-Down arrow. And I don't need to do a second numbered item. You see, this very first one is bold. And when it's bold like that, it typically means you only have to complete just that one. So I'm going to say OK. So now it's found my highest value that's in that column. Now I'm going to mess with this for just a minute. And I'm going to change this number here to like 98,575. And when I do that, you see it changed my highest balance due, right? So it pulls from that column to find the highest one. I'm going to say undo. All right, because I want to leave it accurate. Okay, the next task that we have, task 3, apply the good cell style to cell F12. So go to F12, I'm going to go to my Home tab on my Styles grouping, select my cell styles, and I'll choose Good. And that one is really just that easy. Then it's going to say apply the bad cell style to cell G12. So I'll click into cell G12, and I'll go right back up to my cell styles and choose Bad. And you will often get tossed a simple one like that, and you're going to read too far into it, but don't do that. Let's take a look at task 4. Using a method that will update if values change, format the values in the balance summary column to display red if the amount is greater than or equal to 1,500. So first what we're going to need to do is select our balance summary. So, oops, too far. Okay, here we go. So I'll select the first cell, Control-Shift down arrow, which will go ahead and finish selecting all of those cells for me. And then anytime that it's going to give you text that says, using a method that will update if values change, using a method that will update if values change, if you ever see using a method that will update if values change, it means you're going to use a formula or a function. And in this case, we're going to use one that's called conditional formatting, because conditional formatting also updates if the values change. So here, I'm going to click into conditional formatting, and it's going to give me some options. I have highlight cell rules, if it's greater than or less than, between, equal to, if the text contains. But in our question here, it says if the amount is greater than or equal to. And there's not a conditional formatting here for the cell rules that says greater than or equal to. It has greater than and it has equal to. So there's the top and bottom rules, but that's for the top 10 or the top 10%, the bottom 10, the bottom 10%. And then we've got some other items here. So I'm going to come back to my highlight cells rules, and I'm just going to say, you know what, the one I want's not in there because I want greater than or equal to, so I'm going to say more rules. And now I'm going to get format only cells that contain if the cell value, here's where I'm going to change it. And then I'm going to say is greater than or equal to. Greater than or equal to. And now I'm going to type in there, just go ahead and type in my number, 1500, 1500. Now I need to tell the format to go ahead and change. And in this particular instance, it says display it in red. So that will be my text would be in red. So I'm going to come in here and update this rule to show that I would like for my font color not to be automatic, but instead to be red. And then I'll say OK. Now I can take a look at my rule. If the cell value in the cells I have selected are greater than or equal to 1500, give it red text. Say OK, and it will update all of those for you. All right, that's called your conditional formatting. Let's take a look at the next task. In the next task, task 5, insert a new column to the right of the balance column. Okay, in order to get one, the column that I have selected, when I right click and say insert for a new column, it's going to move to the left. All right, so in order to get a new column to the right of balance, I need to click on H and insert it, and it'll move it to the left of column H. All right, now it's going to ask me, in this particular instance, insert a new column to the right of the balance column and enter the title status. So my title is going to be status. And then it's going to tell me to format the column to match the formatting in the type column. Okay, so it wants the same formatting that we've got over here. So one way that you could do that is you could select this Control-Shift down arrow. You could click on your Format Painter, because your Format Painter is only going to select your formatting, and then I could come back over here and paint that down, and now it'll have the exact same formatting. Also, I kept this formatting in here, so I would want to clear that formatting out, and I could come up here to formatting and choose to clear it out, or I could click on this little erase and just say clear all, and it's going to clear that out of there. All right, let's take a look at the rest of the tasks that we have. Insert a new column to the right of the balance column. Enter the title status. We've done that. Format the column to match the formatting in the type column, which we did that. Another way you could have done that is you could have done a copy and paste formatting. copy and paste formatting. Either way works, okay? And either way will be graded as correct on your assessment. All right, so let's take a look at the next task. In the status column, create a formula that will return overdue if the balance is greater than $1,500 and on time if the balance is less than $1,500. All right, so anytime that you are doing a formula on one row that's going to get filled down, we only select that one row and then we fill it. And it's opposite what we did up here. We selected all of our cells. But here, because we're going to do it line by line, we only choose the very first line. So when I go in and create this formula, I'm going to create this formula as if I'm only doing it for row 15, and then I'll fill it down to the rest of the rows. So if I take a look here, it says, in the status column, create a formula that will return overdue if the balance is greater than $1,500 and on time if it's less than. It doesn't say anything about being equal to, so we don't have to worry about that. But this is another if statement, but this is just a very simple if statement. So at the top, we did average if, and I said that you may at some point get some if, but this one here is just simply going to be an if. So all formulas start with equals, so I'm going to go ahead and start this off equals if. It will bring up the if statement. And then I'm going to choose on my function argument box so that I can get this to make it the easiest for me that I possibly can. And it's going to tell me, let's double check what we've got. Insert a status, in the status column, create a formula that will return overdue if it's greater than and on time if it's less than. So we want to know if this balance due right here, if it is greater than 1,500. Now, this greater than symbol, if you didn't know that that was the greater than symbol, then join the crowd because there are some people who have never learned that the symbols actually have names. But let me share this with you. That's the less than symbol, and you could see that it's kind of like, all right, I just did that wrong. So backspace, backspace, let's go back. We've got here, this is your greater than symbol, and this is your less than symbol. I typed the wrong one a second ago. The less than symbol looks like the letter L. Do you see how that's similar? So you take the letter L and you kind of twist it a little bit, and that's your less than symbol. In this instance here, we're going to say if cell G15, if my balance, cell G15, if it's greater than, or, oh, it does say, yeah, if it's greater than 1,500. So I want to use my greater than 1,500. What do I want it to say? I want it to say overdue. And if the balance is less than 1,500, I want it to say on time. So if I take a look at this, I can pretty much spell this out. If cell G15 is greater than 1,500, it will say overdue. And if it's not, which meaning if it's less than, it's going to say on time. So I'll go ahead and say OK. This one here says it's on time. Now on your test, you can double click right here and it will fill the whole thing in also. So I double clicked on my fill handle and it went ahead and filled it down to all of the cells that are here on this sheet. All right, so that's your standard if statement. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at task 7. Task 7, modify the status column so the invoice status is not displayed. Modify the status column, here's our status column, so that this status is not displayed. That just simply means to hide it. I'm going to right click on column H, and I'm going to say hide, and now it's hidden. Done. Task number 8, format columns A through G so that the column width accommodates the longest length of the text in each column. That's your autofit. Double click is autofit, and it wants columns A through G. So select columns A through G and double click at the end. Double click is autofit, and it will increase to the longest length of the text in there, and that task is complete. You have just completed all the tasks on Project 3. Go ahead and check out Project 4.